A big thanks to Gymnastic Planet for supporting this episode. Gymnastics is a challenging sport, but having the right tools in your gym bag really does help. Gymnastic Planet is a leading manufacturer and distributor of essential training kit. They provide the best quality products, including world-class speed equipment, handguards, and chalk. They also specialize in club services like venue design, maintenance, and installation. Backed by decades of experience, from competing and coaching to club management, Gymnastic Planet aims to help gymnasts succeed and enjoy their craft. If you'd like to find out more, visit gymnasticplanet.com. This episode is sponsored by Turn Gymnastics Apparel, the brand dedicated solely to the sport of men's gymnastics. Choose Turn this season to outfit your team with industry-leading design concepts and elevated options for elite performance. Get the design process started today. Visit turn-gymnastics.com to discover the latest possibilities. Turn. Never done perfecting. Thank you, Turn, for supporting the Sam Oldham podcast. Supporting Turn helps us bring you new content every single week from the world of gymnastics. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Sam Oldham podcast. In this episode of the Sam Oldham podcast, I'm joined by Fabian Hambüchen, the Rio 2016 Olympic gold medalist. Throughout his career, Fabian won 23 Olympic, world and European medals. He's a massive personality in the sport thanks to his incredible career and his larger-than-life demeanor and personality, and I think he became a massive fan favorite for my generation, and this is his story. Fabian, thank you for having us in your gymnastics club. I've seen it online when I watch your videos on social media and on Instagram, and it's incredible to be here, so thank you for giving us your time. Just to start off with me, normally I ask people what they're up to right now. I want to go right back to the start in this episode. Has gymnastics always been part of your life since you were a kid? We have a lot of athletes that come on and maybe they're hyperactive, they might have ADHD and it's a school teacher that gets them into gymnastics, but with your dad being your coach, was it just always in your childhood, gymnastics?
Yeah, if you ask my mom, she would say I already did gymnastics in her belly, you know. So because I was a really active kid, you know, especially when I grew up, she went several times a day to the playground to play around with me. And my older brother, he also did gymnastics. So we always, like my mom and me, we went to the gym to pick him up to get back home. And whenever we was picking him up, I tried to sneak through and just go on the trampoline or into the pit or do something as a little baby already. So gymnastics was always part of my life, and I started with it like in the first gymnastics group when I was 4 years old. So really early. I did my first competition with 5. Usually it was just allowed for kids over 6 years, but we asked them for permission that I'm allowed to compete there with just 5 years old, and they allowed it, and it was fun. So it started really early, and it was my first love, and I still love this sport, this gymnastics, and yeah, it makes me always smile to think about it, to be back in this gym, and still to do some stuff.
You had so much early success in your career, Fabian. You competed at the World Championships at the age of 15. You went to the Olympics at the age of 16. What talents and gifts do you think that you had naturally, whether they were physical, but also the mindset that you had as a kid that enabled you to have that early success? Because not many athletes reach the pinnacle of the sport at such a young age.
So physically, in the beginning, my dad thought I'm not the most talented guy. I was really stiff. I wasn't able to do a split. But what he saw was I loved to move and to learn new skills, and especially being with older guys like my brother, I wanted to be as good as he was, as fast as I can, you know. So that was my biggest motivation, to be better than the older guys. So I think that was a good thing right in the beginning of my gymnastics career, which helped me a lot, and that I just had so much fun doing gymnastics, that I had my family, my friends, everyone was here in the gym. You know, I was just looking for that. Like, of course, I went to school, but I was always happy when I got out of school, because then it meant to be right in the gym and to do some gymnastics and some training. So I think having fun all the time was the biggest key to success, because it helped me to stay positive, to enjoy the ride, the way to be successful. And as soon as I got into the age of 11, I made it to the junior national team. So again, the first U16 competition internationally, I was 11 and I wasn't allowed to compete because you had to be 12 years old. So we asked again the guys for permission, and they allowed me. and I right away won the all-around against the 16-year-old guys. So that was like the first time I probably also realized, okay, I can be one of the top guys. And a few years before, when I was 8 years old, I watched the Olympics '96 in Atlanta, and there was a German guy who won the Olympic gold on high bar. And I said to my mom, listen, Mom, I will go to the Olympics and I'm gonna win. And she was like, okay, let's do it, you know? And that was the start of my dream. And I kept going, I kept moving on that and just believing in this. And I think having this dream, having fun in the sport, and at some point realize there's a chance, that kept me motivating and just to hold on, to keep going and just do what I love to do.
Who were your inspirations and your influences growing up, Fabian? Because when I think back to being a kid, you know, Alexei Nemov, Hiroyuki Tomita, and yourself were certainly three of the guys that I would look up to. Because in Great Britain at the time, we were the 23rd best team in the world in Anaheim. So there was no one on the TV at the Olympic Games that I could watch from Great Britain. So I had to get my inspiration from other gymnasts around the world. Who were you looking up to as a kid, you know, after the Olympic Games? Was it Andras Wecker that won the gold medal on the high bar?
Yeah, that was him. And I met him several times at exhibitions or training camps, and we knew each other. Of course, he was a guy I was looking up to, but honestly, the names you said, Nemov and Tomita, these two guys had been the biggest idols for me all my career. And Vitaly Scherbo. He's the one who was the guy before Nemov, I would say, from the Soviet Union at this time. And these 2 to 3 gymnasts, they were like my biggest idols. And I also tried to, you know, get the same style of gymnastics. When I saw Nemov with his breakdance move, I right away included it to my routine and things like that. I think all the guys, also you, we all did this. So it was amazing. And at some point, I was able to compete with my idols. And then at another point, I was beating them. You know, especially with Tomita. I mean, Nemov was at the end of his career when I just stepped into the senior gymnastics competitions. So I never had a situation where I was really in front of him. But with Tomita, it was so funny because he was, as I said, one of my biggest idols. And then at the Worlds in '06 in Anaheim, Denmark, I got the bronze in the all-around and he was second place. So I was standing next to him. I was like, oh, that's freaking cool. So the next year in Stuttgart, I got the silver in the all-around, and I think he got 4th or 5th, and that was the first time in front of my biggest idol, and I was like, okay, that's crazy now. But yeah, it was lovely to grow up with these kind of gymnasts, because they not only had the greatest gymnastics and the greatest style, they were really nice personalities, and I still, when I see them, I really love to see them. We're like good friends, and it's lovely to stay in touch with them.
When you think back to the Athens Olympic Games, Fabian, being 16, competing in the pinnacle of our sport, you know, I think back to London when I was 19, and when I look back, I go, I was just a child. I didn't understand what was going on. I was quite naive, and I think that helped. I think the naivety of being that young was very helpful in that pressured situation, because I didn't quite comprehend how big it was. When you look back to Athens and being 16, like, what do you remember from that experience? And also, what was it like competing in the final that in many ways changed the whole sport of gymnastics? After that moment, there was no perfect 10, it was gone. And you were part of that historic moment. What was that like?
Well, first of all, like moving into the Olympic Village, experiencing like this Olympic spirit, to really feel it, that was so exciting for me. And the first part of my Olympic dream came true. So it was just amazing for me. And I felt like I could compete every day. I felt like more than 100% like every day. So it was a really awesome time for me being at the Olympics with just 16, and competing in the high bar final was just like, as well, a dream came true, because that was my biggest goal, to make the high bar final. I knew I had a chance, also a chance for a medal. But as you said, like the old code of points with the high score of 10-0 also meant that every little tiny mistake makes a difference between the first 3 places or winning no medal. So unfortunately, I did a big step on my dismount, which made me being in 7th place and not running for a medal probably. So in the first moment I was disappointed a little bit, but at the other time I was like, okay, man, you're 16, it's just amazing. Your first Olympics, making 2 individual finals, high bar and all-around final, which was just amazing, and being part of this historical change in the code of points of gymnastics, that was crazy, because as a 16-year-old kid, I would say, you don't realize what is corruption, what is like not being fair judged and whatever. And to experience it there and then to see the consequences that it takes, it was just crazy. I mean, we had one more year with the 10-0 in 2005. They changed the rules a little bit, which didn't make too much difference. But then in 2006, they started to have this open-end code of points, which was crazy, because your routines, they got longer and longer. It was double of the time it took me to do a high bar routine. I remember my first Europeans with a new code of points in 2006 in Greece. My high bar routine was about a minute, and in Athens it was like 30 seconds or something. So like the impact on your body was much higher, and I couldn't handle it in Greece. So I messed up many routines there. I just was like so exhausted. I was just like, I was done at the end of my routine. I had blue lips. I was searching for oxygen and everything. I crashed into the mat on my dismount, you know. So it was like a really hard time to get used to this new code of points, to get adjusted from your physical side, you know. Yeah. So it was crazy. But as soon as I managed it, I felt like, okay, it's good for me. I had a little advantage because my dad was coaching me so well that I was able to do so many different skills, and we could put all them together. And as soon as I got the endurance for that and the strength, and we put all the things together, I had a really high D score of my routines, and it made me to be a little bit more in front of the other guys than before.
Yeah, I remember that World Championships in 2006, and maybe that's the first time that, I think up until that point, I'd known you as a high bar worker, and I think I'd watched you at the World Cup in Glasgow live when you were 16 years old. And in 2006, you came onto the scene as an all-arounder. I think that's when you first stepped internationally as, whoa, this guy is not just a high bar worker, he's incredible across 6 events. I remember an interview with Uchimura in 2013 at the World Championships. And it's a really great interview. He didn't do many interviews, and it's with the BBC. And they said, what are you trying to do now in your career? You've been the Olympic champion. And he said, well, I would like to do the perfect competition. And I think he knew that didn't exist, right? Perfection doesn't exist. But what I think he meant was that I would like to do an all-around competition where I stick every single landing. And in Nanning, he came very close in 2014. He stuck every landing and his vault, but took a 0.1 hop on parallel bars. And in preparation for this interview today, I went back to watch your routines in 2006, and I had forgot that you stuck nearly everything, but I started with high bar and went backwards. And I was like, he stuck everything, and vault, and rings. And I got to floor, and every tumble, and then the small 0.1 hop on your full twisting double back on your dismount on floor. Can you remember at that time being 18 years old and being that close to almost having a perfect competition? And what was that like to have achieved that as an 18-year-old? Like you say, to be on that podium with Tomita and Yang Wei, who's just come back and made a comeback, must have been an incredible experience, that.
Absolutely. And it was, as you said, it was like one of my best competitions ever, close to perfect, you know. I mean, at this time, I was like physically almost on my peak, you know. I was 18, 19 years old at this time. I felt really, really strong, confident in what I do, in my routines, and being able to think about sticking a landing. Some guys are just thinking about how can I make this skill, how can I survive it, you know? But I was able to think about how do I want to execute this skill? How do I want to land it? And of course, I always wanted to stick it for sure. And so, especially on floor, we were used to work on a really shitty, old, bad floor in my home gym. So whenever I got to a competition on podium, the newest floor, it was like a trampoline for me. So like this Gymnova floor on the podium in 2006, that felt like trampoline for me. I was jumping way higher. I had much more time to prepare the landing. So it was like just like playing around at this time and trying to stick everything. So especially on floor, it was so lovely. I was just a little bit like, oh, this little tiny hop at the end of my my routine. But then I just kept moving. I know my biggest weakness was pommel horse, so second event was pommel horse, so I made it through my routine. I hit it perfectly for my situation. It wasn't the highest score, but at this time, I was still able to have an E-score over 9-0, you know? So it was really good for me. And then rings, I was really confident with my dismount to stick that one. Vault, I mean, 2.5 twisting Yurchenko is always hard to stick. At this time, I would say it just happened. I wasn't forcing it, but it just happened. But then P-bars and high bar, this is exactly what I prepared to stick the dismount. And it was funny. It was like a tactical thing in this competition because we never thought about that I could get a medal in the all-around at this time. So before high bar, which was my last apparat, I was in 4th or 5th position, and we knew, okay, there's just like a 2 to 3 tenths difference to the 3rd place. What are we gonna do? Highest difficulty or just have a safe routine? And because I had 2 faults in the competitions before in my Coleman, we decided not to do Coleman, just doing Colways and do a kind of safe routine, but still pretty difficult, and it worked out perfectly because we said you have to do it in a perfect way, and I did it. And at the end, I think the other Chinese guy, Cheng Yibin, he was also good in the all-around. He had a fall on high bar, so I was able to step on the podium and won the bronze. So this was kind of the best competition ever in my career, or the best all-around, I would say.
And you spoke there, Fabian, about being prepared enough to the level that you were thinking about sticking a dismount. How many times in your career do you feel you reached that level of preparation? Because I know in my own career, I feel like I felt that once when I was like 21 going into the Commonwealth Games. I just knew I was going to stick tumbles, landings. It wasn't, I remember doing a day in the gym and we used to do double pikes off P-bar. I stuck 9 out of 10. My confidence in my ability was so high, but I only really reached that once in my life. How many times in your career do you feel like you got to that point?
It depends on if we want to see the whole all-around or just high bar.
Okay.
Just high bar, I felt this way several times because I prepared there so good, and I knew when it comes to my dismount, I still have enough power to focus on the landing, you know. So, but for the all-around, well, I think it was just like 3-4 times probably. So in the age, so like before 21, 22, I had it several times. I was physically in a really good shape, you know. But after that, I had some injuries. I tore my Achilles and stuff like that. So then it was hard to be prepared on each of these 6 events, like we said before, you know. So yeah, not too many times. I was able to feel like I can just focus on my landing and being really confident with everything.
And was it always your goal, Fabian, to be the best all-around athlete you could be before high bar? And did that change at any point in your career? Obviously, most gymnasts, we start off as all-rounders, right? And through circumstance or injuries, maybe you become a specialist. But I think as gymnasts, we have the most respect for the all-around champion because we understand how much work goes into that and how difficult it is for all the stars to align for a perfect all-around competition. For you, was the aim always to do as well as you could all round, and then you think about high bar? And did that change at any point in your career?
So we always thought about the all-around. Okay. My dad was always a fan of having all-arounders instead of specialists because, as you said, we see a gymnast as the full-packed gymnast when he's doing an all-around, you know. So we always focused on the all-around, and at some point, of course, we saw like the biggest chances to get into the individual finals is high bar, and it got better and better. But my first junior European title was on P-bars. So everybody thought, oh, he's a P-bars guy. But it just happened because I failed on high bar. I had a fall in the qualification, you know. So, but high bar was always my best event, and I always had the most fun of it. And people would think like, oh, then probably he spent the most time on high bar in training. But it wasn't, because high bar was the best one, and I didn't do too many fails, too many errors in my attempts, you know. So I was so good that it was really efficient on high bar. So sometimes it was the apparatus in training I was the least time on, and like P bars or pommel horse, sometimes it took like 45 minutes to do all the training stuff and whatever. So it was just like, I always had this feeling on high bar, and I still have it in me, like this rhythm, how to play with the bar. That was always the thing my dad told me right before he lifted me up on the bar. He said, like, just play with the bar. You know, just to focus on this rhythm. It's just like, it's a game. It's just like having fun, you know, and that was in me just from right off the beginning. And I loved this feeling to fly around, to do different skills, catching the bar again, landing it perfectly. So it just was the feeling. But we never said you're going to be a specialist on high bar. I would say at the end of my career, we should have done it, because I didn't do myself a favor in keeping the all around on a high level, because it got harder and harder, and for my body it wasn't easy to handle this. But we tried till the end. But like the last 2 or 3 years, like 2014 to 2016, I probably should have specialized more on high bar. But at the end, we felt like we want to push the all around still hard.
And in 2007, Fabian, you become a world champion on high bar, but you also finish second in the all around. You win a medal as a team. Just the most incredible event. And overnight, you become almost like a superstar in the sport. And for me, I'll tell you a funny story. The gymnastics club that I was from, Nottingham, I left that gymnastics club to go and train in Huntingdon with Lewis Smith and Daniel Keatons. And just before I left, my dad had organised for the local council to fund a trip to Stuttgart to watch the World Championships. But because I left, I wasn't allowed to go. And I was so upset. So all my best friends got to go and watch you compete at the World Championships. I never got over that. I was so upset that I missed out. And it was my dad that organised the trip. But you go, and I watched it on TV, and it was incredible. What was that experience like for you, and becoming a world champion? And obviously at that moment you have all this media attention because the Olympic Games is coming around in Beijing. That must have been a lot, because at that point you're still a young man, you're a teenager still at that point.
Yeah, like Worlds in Stuttgart 07 was one of the most emotional events of my career for sure. I mean, as soon as I knew that the Worlds will take place in Stuttgart, I was so on fire, you know. And especially that year was really exciting for me, because in the summer I graduated from high school. We had European Championships in Amsterdam in the spring, where I got gold on high bar and silver in the all around as well. So, and as soon as I was done with high school, I was just focusing on Worlds in Stuttgart. I was able to have 2 trainings a day. I was pushing really hard. I went over to Japan to prepare myself a bit more for national championships and everything like that. So the focus was just on Stuttgart. And of course, the biggest goal and the biggest dream was to become a world champion in front of your home crowd, which is just amazing, you know. And I remember, you know, like in Germany, the gymnastics community was pretty small before Stuttgart. So we thought like, okay, we're in a really big venue with like 9,000 seats in there. Usually we're competing in front of 1,500, probably 2,000 people, and now we're in this big gym. Hopefully it's half full, we don't know. So, and right before qualification, we were down in the warm-up gym, but we were able to listen to the audience already, and it was like with drums, with like screamings and singing and whatever. And we were like, what the hell's going out there? And we went up, and the gym was completely packed, sold out, 9,000 people, goosebumps, adrenaline kicked in. We were like, okay, what's going on in here? But it didn't make us nervous. We felt just like this great atmosphere, and just like feeling pumped, and just went through our competition. And the only goal for us was to be coming under the best 12 teams to make it to the Olympics the next year. And at the end of qualifications, we were ranked in 3rd position. And we looked at each other, we were like, what was that? And we were like, okay, it's nice, but you know how it is. 2 days later, team finals, it starts at 0 points, and we're going in the different formation, like 3-on-3 on each apparat. So it's way different than in qualification. But we made it again, and we had a great competition. We just had one little mistake on high bar, I think, from Philip Boy. He missed his dismount. But we won the bronze medal, which was the first bronze medal since, I don't know, 20 years or something. It was amazing for us. And then for me, going on with the all-around and high bar was, of course, like my personal goals were were just on fire at this time, and I was going into the all-around, and I was pretty tired because the team final was the day before. So I was tired, and I started really, really slow with my floor routine. Wasn't perfect. I couldn't do my full dismount at the end. Pommel horse was okay, just had a little mistake in it. Rings was not as good as I thought. And then, why ever, at some point I woke up and I was like, man, keep fighting. What you doing here, you know? And then I almost stuck my 2.5 twisting Yurchenko on wall. Then I did the perfect routine on P-bars. I just had a 4/10 deduction at this time. I had a 9.6 E-score. Yeah, it was like almost a perfect routine. And then I was standing in front of my last event, a high bar, and I knew I just have to hit my routine and I can get a medal. So I made it. So it was a hell of a ride in this competition, you know. But then finished up with the second place was amazing. And then I had 1 day off finally, and then I had the big high bar final. And I was so self-confident at this time. Of course, I had 2 medals in my bag already, what gives you a little bit more like feeling relieved and easygoing. But I remember being in the warm-up gym before the high bar final, everything was great. And then on my way to the competition gym, my mental coach, my uncle, was there. He just grabbed me and he was like, listen, man, you don't have to, you can. And that was really important at this time because we all have the biggest expectations on our own. We put so much pressure on our own, and we always have, you have to do this, this, and this. But this gives you a lot of negative emotions. But if you say, I can, I will, I'm able to, it gives you much more like a positive impact on your soul, on your mind. And that was a really important sentence at this point. And then I went over and I had to wait because I was the last guy standing at this final. And then I was just like, I was in my zone, you know, and that was one of the very few routines where I got into this flow where I didn't think too much. It just went automatically and I just hit it perfectly, stuck the dismount, and I knew, okay, that's it. And when you see like the pictures or like the video of this routine and you look into my eyes, you can really see when I stuck the landing, at some point I was like, I was coming out of myself again. Before I was just like in this zone, in this flow, and at this point, my eyes were just like popping out. I was smiling and I realized I did it, you know, and that was, I think that was exactly what I screamed into the audience right after my cheering. I was like, I did it, you know, so it was amazing. I still get goosebumps when I think about it. It was such an amazing event, and I will never forget these emotions and like the crowd and everything over there.
Incredible, mate. Yeah, I remember watching it and just thinking, wow, this guy is the coolest guy in the world. Because up until that point, there'd never been a gymnast that had really shown much personality. You know, so for me, it was hard to relate to because I grew up, my family were all footballers. And footballers always celebrate. Yeah. But in gymnastics, it was very traditional, rigid. You're quiet, you bow. See this guy come along and he's celebrating like a rock star. I was like, whoa, this is cool. Like, this is making gymnastics cool, because gymnastics was not cool when I started gymnastics. So for me, it was just incredible. And I resonated with that straight away. And I was like, I want to be like that guy. Like, it was, I think for my generation, you were just such a massive inspiration. And back then we didn't have social media, right? So maybe the only time I could see gymnastics was the World Championships, the Europeans sometimes, or the Olympic Games. So it was incredible, man. And I used to watch those videotapes of the VHS tapes of those again and again and again. And
but it's funny that you say this, because our head coach, he was always like, well, when you did your perfect routine, can you just like be like calm down and quiet and just make something like this? I said, why? Yeah, I don't know if it's good that you scream out so loud and that you're like cheering, whatever. Maybe the judges. And I was like, I don't care, you know? And that's what you say, like becoming like a rock star. I felt like, why shouldn't I just show my emotions at this point, you know? It's not like this military style of gymnastics anymore. It's different, you know? And that's what gives a feeling to everybody that it's fun.
Yeah, because I think when you can do an amazing routine, right, and a perfect routine, but I think the fans and the audience, they remember what somebody made them feel. You make me feel something special. Like, I remember when I retired, a guy said to me, Sam, when I watched you do your gymnastics, it was either incredible or terrible. But I loved it because it was exciting. You made me feel something. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's what sport is about, actually. It's like what you can make the person watching feel.
Sure.
It's entertainment, it's a performance, right? And people can't relate to robots and machines so well. So for me, it was incredible to see you doing that and be the first person that was doing that for me. Like, I loved it. And I just wanted to see more of that, so that was great. And then you go to Beijing, Fabian, and you go in as one of the favorites. And you qualify for 4 apparatus finals, is that right? 3 apparatus finals?
3 apparatus and all around.
And all around. So you have a very good competition in qualification.
Yes.
What changed between qualification and then the mistakes that you had in the all around final, and then what felt like, as somebody watching from the outside, the pressure you were carrying into the high bar final?
Well, first of all, the year 2007 was like the best year ever. You know, like becoming European champion, world champion, becoming sportsman of the year in Germany. So my reputation was at my peak, and of course the pressure for the Olympics was as high as possible. And I accepted it. You know, I told myself, okay, I want to go there, and I'm gonna win the gold medal for sure. That was my attitude at this point. I was so self-confident after Worlds in Stuttgart that I thought nothing can happen there in Beijing. I'm just too good, I'm just too consistent in my gymnastics. And the year started off really well with Europeans in Lausanne and in Switzerland. I got the whole collection of medals again. And I was in my best shape ever when we went to Beijing. The only thing I wasn't training so much is my mental strength at this time, because I was so self-confident. I thought, oh, I can do this on my own. I don't need my uncle anymore for that. So, and that was the biggest mistake, I guess. And then qualification went well. I was just doing my thing. I think just pommel horse wasn't my best routine, but I was in the best position for several medals. We were in a good position for winning again the bronze with the team. All around, I had the chance to win the silver again because Yang Wei, the Chinese guys, was just like too good at this time. So, and then I had 3 more event finals. So I was like, okay, could be the same way I succeeded in Stuttgart the year before. And then in the one-touch warm-up in the team final on P-bars, I injured my finger. I stepped on it like really hard and it was cracking. I was like, okay, something happened, but you know how it is. You can't do anything at this moment. Just put eyes on it and just go. So P-bars was okay, but then on high bar, I did a stupid mistake. I was falling down. And at this point, I really felt like my attention is not anymore on my gymnastics, it's more on the injury and what kind of consequences could that be for the Olympics. And at the end, we had 3 mistakes as a team, and we made just the 4th place. So the US guys, they were just better on this day. They got the bronze. So of course, we were all disappointed. And at this time, I was like, okay, whatever it is, I need to focus on the individual finals now. All-around final 2 days later. So in the evening of the team final, or after the competition, we went back to Olympic Village, and a doctor came over and he said, yeah, let's do an injection on your finger. And I said, hey, listen, I'm not a big fan always to do these injections with cortisone. It's not doping, it's okay, but it's not the best for your health and everything. I was like, listen, we have 1 day off tomorrow. Let's see how it feels tomorrow. So next morning I woke up, I couldn't move my finger more than that. He came over, he said, how is it? I said, no, not good. He said, yeah, let's do the injection. I said, cool down, man. I go to the gym, I do some warm-up, maybe with the blood flow and everything, it works out. Couldn't do anything in training, nothing at all, just stretching. So I got back to the Olympic Village and I told him, hey, okay, we need to do something. So he put the injection and then he told me, but you know, it takes 24 hours till it really works. And I was like, okay, it's the afternoon, the competition is the next morning. We will see, we got this. You know, I was still like, proud and like confident that we get this. But then the next morning I woke up, it was the same with the finger, couldn't move it. So I took some painkillers and I was like, okay, hopefully that works. Went to the warm-up gym. I said, okay, I can't do anything. I just did stretching, nothing more. But I couldn't say I'm gonna withdraw from the competition. So my dad came over and he said, you're not doing the competition. I don't allow you to do that. I said, Dad, I will go over there and I just do my thing. He said, but how do you want to do that? I said, I just like bite on my teeth and just hit my routine. What we prepared. And he was like, well, okay, I'll let you do this, but just on the one condition. I said, what is it? just don't show any pain. Don't suffer in front of anyone. It's like, okay, whatever it is, just let me do it. Because my dad was always, he was not like this hard guy, you know, this harsh guy in training, but he never liked it when you show too much that you're suffering of pain or something. You know, as a kid, when you learn the split, it hurt, you know, and sometimes a tear comes out of your eye, but he doesn't like it if you show it. So he was like, just go and do your thing, and that's the only thing I wanted to hear from him. So I went over, so I did floor exercise in the beginning. It was okay, it was a solid routine. Then I did pommel horse, and it hurt so much on my finger, but I hit my routine. I think it was just like an easier dismount, a C dismount at the end. Then rings was okay. Vault, I got the really hard punch again in my finger, had a big step on the landing, but I was still in contention of silver position, you know. Then I did a little mistake on P-bars, which wasn't too bad. I was still able to make it to silver medal. And then last event, high bar. And I knew I just need a good routine. It doesn't need to be the perfect routine, you know. And then I missed my Coleman first release, was falling down. And when I saw the slow motion on the screen, the release was good. I wasn't too far away, not being able to catch the bar. I wasn't too close. I was good. The only thing that happened was the hand with the injured finger was going to the bar and just opened up again. And to understand that your body has this mechanism, like to protect yourself, like this reflex, that was so hard, because it was exactly the opposite I told my body to do at this point, you know. So, and then I got 7th in the all around. And I was like in this circle, you know. Injury happened, not getting a medal again. Then I had the floor final the next day. At this point, the ejection helped, and I had no more pain the next day. So I went into the floor final. I had a big hop on my first pass, a big hop on my last pass. I got 4th. Next day, P-bars final. I had a little handstand, like with bending my arms. 4th place again. And then you're there, last event, last chance, high bar final, going up as the first guy in this final, which is a really stressful situation. You have no time to calm down again. You come over from the warm-up gym, you have to line up in front of the judges, and you're like, just, okay, I have to go right away. And the only thing I was thinking about was the gold medal. The whole time I was thinking, you have to get the gold this time. If you get the gold, no one sees all the mistakes you did before. Just go for the gold. I just was focusing on this freaking gold medal instead of thinking, what do I have to do to get the gold medal? So, and at the end, I did a routine with little mistakes without falling down. I stuck the landing, but I right away knew that won't be any medal. So, and then all the other guys also had a hard time and did some mistakes, and I took benefit of it and just got the bronze at the end, but I was so disappointed. I couldn't smile at all. I wasn't happy. It was such a hard time, and still right now, when I think about it, I get really pissed and upset about it, because I knew, there was so much more left in my tank to, you know, get several medals. But it was an experience, and at the end, fortunately, it was worth it.
I imagine you learned a lot about life in those moments as well, and yourself and your character, and it helped you then moving forwards when you were in those situations again. You go into the new Olympic cycle very motivated, I imagine, after that experience in Beijing. And in 2009, you become what then goes on to be the last person to beat Uchimura in an all-around competition for 10 years. And I sometimes say to people, you know, if Fabian went to the Worlds and competed and beat Uchimura at that competition, maybe Uchimura wouldn't go on to be as successful as he was. And you go to the Japan Cup and you beat him there in Japan. Just tell me about the challenges you then faced between Beijing and the London 2012 Olympic Games.
Well, that was a hard time for me. Fortunately, I'm not this guy when I have like this bad experience I had in Beijing that I'm falling down into a hole or something. I'm always this guy who says, now it's my time. I have to push harder, I have to work harder, and then I will show everyone and I will prove myself that I'm the best. So what I did, I had small surgery on my finger after Beijing. wasn't too bad, just a torn little ligament. So I just was off training for like 2 weeks or something. And then right away in 2009, I started off the season with the American Cup. I wasn't at my best shape at this time, but I won this competition. And I think it was, almost the first time that a non-US guy is winning this competition. So it was a good start into the year for me. And then I was feeling like I have to prove myself that I'm still the best. So I took every chance to make a competition. Every World Cup, every little thing, we always agreed the invitation or the request. So usually, you know how it is, like these big competitions, you probably do 10 to maybe 15 with like qualification competitions in a year. But at this time, I did like 30 competitions, 30 high-level competitions, and I was just going, pushing hard. And after every good high bar routine, I said to myself, if you have done this in Beijing, you would be the Olympic champion. You know, I always had this feeling I need to prove this to myself. I always had Beijing in mind. So I was working so hard. I was working so much in the gym that I was in one of my best shapes ever in the summer. But instead of having a summer break and getting some rest, I just kept going. With the result, at the end, in 2009, World Championships in London, where you said I had the chance maybe to beat Uchimura for the last time, I was just burned out. I was just done. I was exhausted. I came over to London. I was like, I don't know how I can survive this competition, you know. And especially, I remember the bus ride from the hotel to the gym was sometimes 1 hour or 1.5 hours because of the traffic, and that killed me. This time sitting in the bus, I got so tired. So as soon as we got to the gym, even if it was training or competition, I was so tired. I was like, whoa, man, that was hard for me, this bus ride, you know. So every little thing made me tired and exhausted. I was just able to, you know, to bring all my power in a really small amount of time. So, and then we went to podium training, and I felt really, really hard. I messed up my high bar routine. I had a hard time with the Gymnova high bar up there. And then last event in this training was floor exercise. And I was like, okay, let's try to hit a nice and solid routine. And then I screwed my ankle, I tore my ligament on my foot, and then was done. I went out of the competition. I was sitting in the stands and just like watching the competition. I was really, really upset about myself. And at this point, I couldn't feel again this tiredness or this being exhausted. I just felt like I'm in the wrong place here. I'm sitting here. I have to be down there in the competition floor. I want to compete. Let me go there. I was sitting with my uncle up there on the stands, and he was telling me, try to save this emotion, this feeling. Try to remember this for the next years. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? You know, so. But anyways, I tried to save this feeling in my mind at some point. And instead of going home and recover from this injury, no, I just put tape on my foot and just go again into the next competition. I kept moving this. Then I had a bigger vacation in the winter in 2009 and 2010. It was like 2 weeks or something. And I gained so much weight in this time because before I was burned out so much. And then I was like a sponge, like jumping up like 8 kilograms more or something. I came back, and then I just tried to get all this weight away with a really stupid diet. So I did like no carbs and in the evening, no protein, nothing like that. It was just stupid, just was eating salad or something. But I didn't know it better at this time. Of course, I got light really fast, but I had no more power. And the whole year 2010, I was suffering from that shit, you know? And then the problems with my foot started to change a little bit. The outside ligament didn't hurt anymore, but my Achilles started to hurt. And then in January 2011, the Achilles torn in training. And that was the time where I had to rest and couldn't do anything. And at the end, I have to say, it was the best thing that could happen to me.
You were forced to rest. You had no choice, right?
And then I did a huge rehab, like 7 or 8 months. Then I came back with my first competition. I did Worlds, got 4th on high bar there. We qualified for the Olympics, which was our biggest goal. And then I went in a pretty good shape to the Olympics in London. I just wasn't able to do my full routine on floor, just had a little more easy one, but it was still good enough to to be able to make a medal in the all-around as well. So we made team finals again. I made all-around and high bar final. With the team, we didn't have a chance for a medal at this time, but we made the final, which was good. And then all-around, I felt the way like, okay, this time I'm going to get the silver medal because, as you said, Uchimura, he was the one that no one can beat at this time. So I was just looking to the silver medal, and I always said to myself, this time you're going to do it better than in Beijing. And that was the mistake. To think about it again, what happened in Beijing, to say it to myself, do it better than in Beijing, made me thinking or being back mentally in Beijing and thinking too much about the medals. What happened is I had 3 mistakes in my all-around. I got 15th place at the end. I was so disappointed, frustrated. I didn't know why that happened. And fortunately, my uncle was there as well. And the next day or 2 days later, we sat down together and we worked on that. And we found out that because I said it the way I said it, I was mentally back to Beijing, and we did exactly the mistake we tried to avoid, you know. So that was hard at this point, and usually we're not people who cry that fast, but at this point, my uncle and me at the same time, we cried so hard. It just took a minute or something, and then everything went out. I felt so much relieved, and I went to training the next 2 or 3 days, and then I went into the final. I was really in a good shape and a good mental situation, and then I just hit my routine and I got the silver medal. And at this time I was like happy as hell, you know. It was just like the best thing that could happen in my life.
It's amazing to hear you tell that story of those 4 years. I want to go back a little bit to 2010, Fabian. That was the first competition that I went to as a senior gymnast. I was 17 and I was the reserve, so I could watch, and I remember very clearly watching the team final, and you guys won a bronze medal there at the World Championships. But I remember you being shut out of the huddle, and I remember the guys jumping around and seeing you to the side. And then I remember a year later, 2011 European Championships, I was competing in the high bar final. And I remember when I left the competition, I finished 4th. And I left the competition, I was walking around the middle of the arena with my parents, and I saw you, and I saw Zonderland, and I saw you open your chest, and you had a Dutch leotard on. And at that time I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on with the dynamic in the team. Because your German team at that time, you had some incredible individuals, right? So you had like Marcel, yourself, Matthias Fahrig, Philip Boy, like an incredibly good team of individuals, and everybody has egos, right? What was the dynamic like within your team at the time? And was it difficult with the success that you had so young, sometimes to fit in with the people around you? Because when I was a kid, I did the same thing. I was very successful very young and trained with the senior guys. And sometimes that was difficult hanging around with my own friends then, because they saw me as different. Did you struggle with that at times in your career? Or was that not really a thing? Is that me just seeing something from the outside and maybe noticing something?
No, it was really difficult in our team. Like these, I would say like these 3 Olympic cycles I went through. I mean, at the end it were 4, but maybe if you see just like 04 to 08 and then the next 2 cycles, like the first Olympic cycle, we've been a great team. It was a great team atmosphere, team effort. And it was, like you said, I was 15 when I stepped into the seniors team competitions. And at this time, of course, 1 or 2 guys, they felt like, oh, what is this little kid doing in our team, you know? But there was one guy, Thomas Andergersen. He's 7 years older than me. And he just took me and he said, listen, Fabi, you're now with the seniors. I show you how it works with us. And that was the best thing. He was like my mentor from the beginning. So we had a great atmosphere in this team because I knew how to behave, because I was a kid, you know, with 15, 16. I wasn't majored at all. So, but he showed me how to behave and how to be part of the team, and that helped a lot. So these 4 years from 2004 to 2008, we've been a great team. So that's why we also became bronze medalists at Worlds. We made it to Beijing. We had a chance to have a medal there as well, and so on. And then these older guys like Andergersen and Robert Jockel and whatever, they retired after Beijing. And then was all this younger generation, like my age, like you said, Farik, Boy, Nguyen, and so on. Of course, we were all really, really strong, and we all had a chance individually to make a medal. So the competition in the team was much bigger, which is nice in general, but we also had big problems with like the coaches, with the system, that at some point in the sports in Germany, it was still like East against the West.
Okay.
And it's sometimes still like it. It's like the old structures, they are still existing. And so we had many little fights in there, and also like these things all about jealousy, being envious, and things like that. So it was really hard. And at some point, I did my own thing. You know, at some point, I felt like it's not good for me to be with the team and work out with them, because it was like bad vibes going on. And so I decided to go for training camps in Japan on my own, not to be part of every national training camp. And the reason why I was able to do that was I was independent. I had sponsors. I was independent of the federation, of any kind of systems, being part of the army or the police, which have all the sports programs and stuff. So I was able to just like, do what I want to do. And being that good gave me all the arguments on my side, like all the reasons that no one can say you're not being part of the team. But of course, the other athletes which would love to do this couldn't do it, because they were dependent of the federation, because they were hired by the army, they were hired by them, blah blah blah. So that made it a little bit difficult in our team. And from the personal side, or like the character side, we were so different. Everyone was so different. So it was not easy to have a great like team spirit or something. And I think that's exactly what you saw in Rotterdam at Worlds in 2010, that the other guys, they were like partying together when we got the bronze, and I was standing outside because especially before this competition, I did most of the preparation on my own at home.
Okay.
Because I had problems with my Achilles at this time, and I wanted to continue working with my doctor here and my physiotherapist, and I told the head coach I will stay as long as I can at home, and then I will come to the national team just right before the competition, you know. So, and I think that made it really, really difficult at this time. But then in the next cycle, from 2012 to 2016, it changed again. We had different guys coming into the team with Lukas Dauser, at this time Andreas Brettschneider, and we had a great team spirit, and we had a lot of fun at this time.
In a situation like that, Fabian, where maybe you've got big personalities, big egos, everybody wants a bit of the success, do you think it's very important that you have strong leadership that can bring people together and make okay, maybe you're not best friends, you don't need to be best friends, but the common goal is bigger than the individual goal, and maybe you didn't have that at that time and if you did, maybe, because I would also say that I isolated myself from the group a lot as well, and I maybe didn't help the situation at times. But if somebody had been a bit wiser than me, they could have come and had a conversation and brought us together, and that might have been, we would have maybe had a better solution. Because I would look at your team sometimes, and you had success, and you won team medals, but I would look and go, individually, these guys are unbelievable. And I would do that with the US team at times as well. In London, I'm like, what? If you separate individually gymnast against gymnast with our British team, these guys are way better than we are. But we just had, I think, a common goal at that time. But then, interestingly, the next cycle that changed. The dynamic changed because gymnasts started to go, well, I want to train by myself. And I want to do my own preparation. I don't want to warm up with the team anymore. And it's interesting you explained that. But it came back as a team spirit towards 2016. And then obviously you went on to have that success.
Yeah, absolutely. But what you said, you need a leader in the team, or maybe outside of the team, you know? So in this case, I would say like the head coach or some of the other coaches, they should be the leader and tell us that we are a group and we have a common goal. But as I said, also the coaches, some are from the east, some are from the
okay,
west.
yes.
At this time, it was always a fight, everyone against each other, you know.
Yeah.
So
And sometimes it's worse with the coaches, right?
Yeah,
sometimes you're
exactly.
like, oh,
they
come on.
were firing it up even more sometimes. When a gymnast didn't have a problem, but the coaches had. I remember exactly in front of this Worlds in 2010, because I wasn't able to do floor and vault with my foot. So I decided just to do 4 events. And there was another guy, Robert Weber. He was also good on these 4 events. So we made the competition at the end of camp. Him against me. And you know, that was just like bullshit, you know, because the coaches, they got like really into a fight. We both usually had no problem, but after the competition, because I was better than him, we had a problem.
Yeah.
We had a problem, and he was really pissed. And I do understand it, because the situation was just like so fired up by the coaches and guys like that. My dad, fortunately, he wasn't like that. He was, because he lived in Japan, he knew how to be fair, how to respect each other. He also thinks like also my agent thinks like all people has the same value, you know? And so we never thought of like having fights and this is a bad guy, this is a good guy. No, we're all the same and everyone wants to do his best, you know?
Yeah.
But that was the thing. We don't have anyone who was leading the team. So in this cycle, it was really hard. The next one got way better because on one side, we, like me and also the other teammates, we got older and probably a little bit wiser. And at some point, we made the decisions how we want to prepare, how we want to do the training, so that we weren't like just the puppets of the coaches. You know, they say you have to do this, this, and this. No, we were standing there as a team and said, hey, listen, we think it would be better if we do like the routines at this day and then have the day off and then do this and this and this. In the beginning, the head coach was a little bit like concerned if that works out, because it wasn't the way he wants us to prepare. And then, especially before Worlds 2014 in China, we went to Japan to prepare before as a team. And then we got there, and then he was like the head coach was like, okay, on the 3rd or 4th day, we do routines. And then we went over to him and we said, okay, we're doing routines, but we want to do like a test competition. And he was like, wow, that's amazing. So you guys want to do it all together? And we said, yeah, we like that. We want to do it all together. We want to push each other and not just like everyone is doing his thing and one is starting on high bar, the other one on floor and blah, blah, blah. So he saw that there was a different energy in the team and that we respect his plan, his schedule, his programming. But on the other side, we modified it a little bit so that it's even better. And as he got this, at this point, it was amazing. And we had like the last 2 or 3 years, a really, really good communication, a good team spirit. We love to hang out together also outside of the gym. So it was amazing.
Yeah,
it was
that's
great.
amazing. And then you go into that last Olympic cycle, Fabian, and in 2014, I very clearly remember, and we've spoken about this before, at the Tokyo Cup, and we go to the World Cup in Tokyo, and I'm nervous because I'm competing with Fabian and Uchimura, and I'm in Japan, and this is a big moment, top 8 gymnasts in the world all around, and we're about to go out to do a floor routine, and I'm 21. I'm doing a big routine on floor, and I'm like nervous, and you're like, hey guys, should we do a sticking competition? And I'm like, is this guy... We're different people. Like, I'm very nervous. I'm in the zone trying to be a professional athlete. And he's joking around saying, let's do this. Then you go and do your routine and stick every tumble. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in sport. How much of that was genuine and how much of it was you almost forcing yourself for that to be your perspective in the sport? Does that make sense? Because it sounds like that wasn't the case in Beijing. It wasn't the case 4 years before in that Olympic cycle, but you changed your mindset. How much did you have to work on that?
I think the person who had the biggest impact on me concerning like having fun in a competition was Sam Mikulek.
Okay.
So I've met Sam at the Olympics in London the first time. And then the next time it was at Worlds in 2013. And then we were able to work out together, to get to know each other much better. And I saw him smiling. He's such a positive guy. You know, he was having fun in the competition and we had a great battle in the all-around. So it was so funny in the all-around in 2013. Our last event, I was on floor and he was on high bar. He was in 3rd position, I was in 4th position, and we really competed our routine at the same time. I was so confident with my floor routine, so I was listening to the crowd during my routine to hear if he's doing a mistake. So because whenever someone is doing a mistake, the crowd is a little bit like, whoa, or whatever, making special sounds. So, and then I did my Japanese handstand, and I heard the crowd like making different sounds, and I was like, oh, he's doing a mistake. I also did a little mistake in this. I was like, oh, keep focused, man, keep focused. And then I stuck my last pass, and I was like, okay. I looked to my dad, and he was jumping around, and I knew, okay, now I made it. I got the bronze, and unfortunately, Sam did a mistake, and he got 4th. So after that, we talked about it, and he was like, man, what the fuck is going on? And so we had a really good time. And then in 2014, before the Tokyo Cup, there was the American Cup a few weeks before. And I prepared myself at the University of Michigan together with Sam for the American Cup. I asked him, I called him, hi, can I come over? And he said, yeah, sure, come over. We work out together, we prepare ourselves. And at this time, I learned a lot from him with like having fun and especially like making these little games, even in a competition like sticking contest. Makes a little bit more, like relaxed and just like focusing on different things and not being too nervous, as you said. So that was the reason why probably I came over to you guys and said, hey, let's do a sticking contest. And most of you guys agreed to that, especially the Spanish guy, Fabian Gonzalez. He's also a good friend of mine. Yeah. He was like, okay, let's do it. Let's have fun. And especially at this Tokyo Cup, it was so funny because at this time, I was in Japan already 10 times or even more. So I definitely knew how to adjust to the time, how to trust myself, my body, to be ready at the competition day, but not the days before. And everyone got a little bit nervous because I was just like doing basics and training, no difficult skills, no routines, just like really small little training sessions. And I remember some coaches went to my dad, is everything okay with Fabi? Is he hurt or is he not feeling well? And my dad was like, I don't know, but he got this, hopefully, And at the day of the competition, I knew I will be adjusted to the time and I can go hard. And then, we had a great competition. I stuck everything on floor. That was amazing in the beginning. And then, we had a great time. Finished up in 2nd or 3rd place. I can't remember. Uchimura for sure was in 1st, and then I think I was 2nd and 3rd was Kato. Yeah. Something like this. And then Purvis and me won the whole World Cup series. That was amazing. So it's all about that, I think, just keeping in mind that it's lovely to do what you do, to have fun with it, even if you're nervous, even if you're excited. Many people think if you have fun, you're not concentrated enough, but that's wrong. That's wrong. If you're like kind of relieved and like easygoing, most of the time it works out even better than being just like focused too much on every little thing.
When you competed in your final competition at the Olympic Games, Fabian, and you're doing your high bar routine, can you remember any of the experiences you'd had previously in your career that you drew upon in that moment? When you're out there to go and do a big, that this is it, right? I've been in the high bar final, a bronze medal, a silver medal, and potentially the favorite going into the final to win the gold medal. Were there any moments where you remembered a situation you'd been in previously and you used that experience to maybe calm down or be relaxed or prepare yourself mentally going into that routine before you put your hand up?
Yeah, the time before the Olympics in 2016 was one of the hardest time in my life. So I had a partly torn supraspinatus tendon since 2012, and it never got better from year to year. We always just try to keep it moving with physiotherapist, with injections, whatever. So it was always getting harder to be back in shape for the big competitions. So 4 or 5 months before the Olympics in Rio, I injured my shoulder again on high bar here in training. And then I went to an MRI and you couldn't see if the tendon is still there or not. So the thing was, I couldn't raise my arm higher than that. That's it. So, and every doctor told me, yeah, we have to do another injection now, blah, 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 of cortisone. I said, no, we don't do this. Make no sense, because it helps me for a few weeks, but the Olympics are in 5 months, that doesn't work out. So I tried to work with different doctors, different types of treatments, and it never worked out. And at some point I was like, okay, I have to give up. I can't go on. I have no chance to go on with gymnastics because I couldn't training for like 2 or 3 months already. Then I went to a different doctor and I just wanted to have a recommendation for a surgeon because I said to myself, I just want to have a life without pain because I couldn't sleep anymore without pain. I couldn't grab everything higher than that and whatever. When I changed gear in the car, it hurt. I was like, okay, I can't do anything. I just want to have a life without pain. So I went to this one doctor who's living in Munich, and I just talked to him and showed him all my MRI stuff and whatever. And he said at the end when he checked at me, he was like, you're not going to get surgery. You go to Rio. I said, it's the last thing I wanted to hear from you, So, but he had a really nice character, nice attitude, really calm, but motivating at the same time. And I was like, okay, let's give him a chance. I asked him, how do you want to do that? And he said, we do it without cortisone, without painkillers. I said, that's a new way. So he did some injections with like ED stuff on my spine. We did like kind of X-ray thing, treatment to get the inflamed stuff out of it. So, but it took like 4 to 6 weeks that this treatment works. And I was like, okay, honestly, we don't have this time, but let's try it. So 6 weeks later, I came to him, nothing changed, still the same pain. I asked him, what are we gonna do now? And he said, yeah, okay, take painkillers for a week, like high dose. I was like, okay, just do it. It was a little bit better, but I was miles away of doing any gymnastics. So I went again to him and I said, listen, man, we have now 3.5 weeks until nationals. I haven't done gymnastics for like 3.5 months now. The longest vacation I ever had in a year was 2 weeks. And it took me several weeks to get back in shape. I don't know if we have any chance to get back in shape, but if we want to, we need to do something and I have to be without any pain. And he said, okay, I don't want to do this, but if you agree to it, I give you an injection with cortisone, and then you got to do it. I said, yeah, okay, last chance, whatever. He did it. 2 days later, no more pain. I was sitting with my dad. We decided not to do all around anymore, just floor, vault, and high bar. And then I was just like pushing hard, like these 3 weeks till nationals. So when we went to nationals, I was back to like 80% or something. I right away got the title on floor and high bar, and I just showed everyone, especially the head coach, that I'm still there because he haven't seen me for 4 months. He haven't heard of me in 4 months. He thought I'm done, it's over. But then I came back, and then we had another trials 2 weeks later, and I was back at 90% or something. And the only reason why that worked out was because I was mentally just focusing on that one thing. I know it's my last chance. It will be my last Olympics. I have to do it, And my Olympic dream and everything just really pushed hard inside of me. So right after the second trial, I got nominated for the team. And with that experience, with the shoulder injury, I was like, you have to be grateful to be in that position again, to be an Olympian, to have the chance to show what you love to do, to probably make a great competition. And with that thinking and that experience, I tried to calm down myself, not to think about the gold medal or anything, because at the point I got nominated for the team, of course, the media was like, oh, Fabian is in the team. His last chance to win the gold medal would be the perfect story from bronze, silver to gold, blah, blah, blah. They put a lot of pressure right away on me. So, but myself, I was just like thinking about being grateful, being happy, just love what I do, And that helped me to calm down and being really, really relaxed. But at the point of the high bar final at the Olympics in Rio, what also helped, fortunately, at the end was this bad experience of Beijing. Because I knew what to think, how to feel, and I especially knew the situation to running up at first in the high bar final. So I prepared myself right away of course, when I heard after qualification, my starting position is number 1 in the high bar final, of course, I had so many flashbacks of Beijing, but then I started to work with my mental coach right away to get this fixed. And what we did the most at this time is to think about the feeling. So how does it feel to do high bar? Yeah, it's all about rhythm. It's all about just like, the swing and everything. And the goal was to concentrate on the feeling, gives you the opportunity to be in that flow, so that you never think about what do I have to do next. That it's just like automatically that you're at this point, you're a machine, you're a robot, and that worked out so much until the dismount. Right before the dismount, I started to have like a little, do you say like resume? Mm. And I said to myself, that was a great routine, it was perfect, so just hit the dismount, just stick it now. And at this point, I got out of this flow and I just messed up the landing. The dismount was great, it was perfect, I was landing, I was just like, I don't know what happened, honestly, but I had to do a step back, a little wave with my arms, and I was like, oh man, if that's the tenth that's missing for the gold at the end, I could just cry, But yeah, fortunately, everything worked out, and I got the gold at the end, and was like the completion of my career was just like perfect, and just like the best moment of my life.
Yeah, it was like the perfect career, right? When you look back now in hindsight, I'm sure you're grateful for everything that happened to you and all the challenges, and to see that you're such a likable guy as well. I think you certainly were a fan favorite, and it's interesting what you say. Like, I was describing you to Sam, who works with me on the podcast, and I said, you just feel happy when you're around him. He's a positive energy. There are some people where you walk into the room and everybody wants to leave. But there are some people that walk into the room and the room lights up. And when I've spent time with you, particularly in that cycle after 2012, I always felt like that. You're a very special person. So thank you for giving us your time today, mate. It's been an incredible conversation. I'm sure the people back home will have absolutely loved it. You've been so grateful with your time. Just before we finish, the last thing, what are your plans for next year, and what's the future hold for Fabian?
Well, that's a difficult question. I never know, honestly. I'm still working with the media, so I'm working as a moderator for Eurosport, but just during the Olympics. But funny thing is, I also do Winter Olympics, so that's really exciting for me and something new. So, of course, in 2025, we're going to prepare for the Winter Olympics in 2026, which are in February. Already. So we keep going this. I'm doing speeches about motivation and mental strength, working still with sponsors, and doing different TV shows, and we never know when these requests come into my agency. So every year is different, which is nice. On the other side, it's sometimes hard to plan things. But yeah, I'm still on my path to find the profession for my future. That one thing where the fire is coming up again, like it was in gymnastics. I think that's the hardest part for every athlete after the career, to find something where you're really motivated, you're really pumped for again. But I'm still on this path, and I'm curious to see so many different things, to travel around the world, working with different companies. So it's going to be an exciting year again, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Amazing, mate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.